Going to get right to the point. True or false? You do have an emergency fund. True or false? You don't have to answer that to me, but answer that to yourself. Do you have an emergency fund? Why? Let's talk about it. Back in a minute. Morning. This is Jan from New York City, and I really love helping people keep some more of their own hard earned money. Thank you so much for being here. Let's talk a few minutes about emergency funds. Now, sometimes if I've ever asked the person that question, do you have an emergency fund? They're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, good, good, good. But sometimes people confuse carrying a credit card as their emergency fund. Can I tell you something? That is not an emergency fund, and it's not a good idea. What? No, no, no. Because credit cards have to be paid back. Now, don't get me wrong. If there is an emergency, let's pretend you're on the road, it's the middle of the night, and you use your credit card as the vehicle of which to pay for, let's say, a road emergency of some sort, that type of thing. But then you know that as soon as you can, like immediately, if not sooner, you will pay the credit card right away and you have the funds already in place. A lot of people confuse their credit card balances as their emergency fund. I'm like, no, no, not a great idea. So here's the thing. While things are nice and calm in your life, for example, why not take that moment or two to put a little bit here and a little bit there away? I don't understand why sometimes people love to, procrastinate. See, here's the thing with emergencies. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. I don't want to sound gloomy and doomy, but this is real life. In real life, emergencies happen. Okay, let's go back to, let's say, unexpected job interruption. Or a layoff. I think it is really, really important. So, once again, here we go again. We're getting familiar with your own numbers. Here we go again with the budgeting and factoring in emergency funding as part of your natural monthly funding. Like as if you were to pay, let's say, your cell phone bill. Well, why not create the separate category of emergency funding? And if you do this a little bit at a time, or if you want to get more aggressive about it and put more in while you can, great. But some people say, well, I can't afford emergency fund. I think you can't afford not to have an emergency fund. And that's the goodness honest truth. Okay. Think about that before you are okay with slapping down $20 on fast food. Uh, 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 uh. But I'm hungry and I want my food fast. Well, a little prep work, a little good planning grocery store trip can, fix all of that. The things that we could do, there are so many things that we could do as a preventative action to make sure that we take care of the most necessary items in life, to have certain things in place. Let me ask you a question. Let's say your refrigerator broke down. You have zero emergency fund. What are you going to do? Refrigerator is kind of sort of an important appliance. Am I right or am I right? What are you going to do? You don't want to take out a personal loan. You don't want to open up another credit card account. You don't want to have to deal with it. This is my opinion anyway. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't. I'd rather know the funds are in place, and I would rather know that okay, well, this thing came up. Things happen because I always know in life it is not a question of if, it is a question of when. So right now, well, let's say the tide is nice and calm. If you have not started an emergency fund, I highly, 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 highly suggest that you consider doing it right away. Yeah, but Jan, you're asking too much of me. I think it's asking too much of anyone to not have a plan in place. And credit cards are not an emergency fund. I wish people would stop the confusion on that. A credit card is a handy short-term loan, is a handy vehicle to transfer your money over. to right away take care of that. Or better still, keep a debit card and fill that thing up for your emergencies. And you just outright pay for the thing. And that isn't that a better way? Let's think about it. Isn't that a better way? Avoid interest charges, avoid possible late fees. Because, people sometimes, they just, for whatever the reason, I'm not sure the reason, people get so busy. Some people just ignore their bills, which, oh, that is never a great idea. Ignoring your bills or whatever statements that you get. It's always good to know your numbers. Okay. So, therefore, I think the best bet is to stop using or thinking a credit card is your emergency fund. It could be the tool to use to convey the money, but it is not your emergency fund. And always remember this: never ever live beyond your means. That's a bad mistake. Always live within your means. If you have to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwich for an entire week, okay, for lunch and dinner, to make sure that you could begin that emergency fund, I don't know. I'm just saying, find a way. There's always a way. We just have to be more receptive to it. We just have to know in the back of our minds that emergencies will happen. It is not a question of if, it is a question of when. Like I said, I don't like to be gloomy and doomy because that's definitely not the way I roll. But isn't it more gloomy and doomy to not be ready? It's just like going back to stockpiling food. Okay. While the times are, nicer and quieter, you could take a little time and, look through and try to get the best you can and do the $5 Friday stockpiling trick. Take a $5 bill on a Friday, put it to the side on purpose, specifically for purchasing stockpiling grocery items. It could be for food or other non-food grocery items that you may need. For example, like let's say like for bandages or stuff of that nature, toothpaste or things of that nature that you're going to need. Isn't it easier during calmer times in life to get prepared? This is what I have found, most interesting. Why do some people like to operate all the time as what I call the 11th hour, okay? 11th hour mentality, where they just, for whatever the reason, I don't know the reason, but they just like, they gear up at the 11th hour to do things at the last minute. I am so different that way. I love to do things ahead of time. Like even recording the video that you're listening to, this audio video, okay? I'm recording this on the Monday from a week ago, but you're listening to this on the following Tuesday morning. Why? Because I like to plan ahead. A little bit of a forethought in general in life with everything you do. I promise you, it goes far. Just a little bit of forethought. There you go. I want to wish everybody well today. And thank you so much for being here. I certainly appreciate everybody's time. And I don't mind it if you would do the following. Have an amazing, fantastic day. Take good care of yourself and your family.